Hey there, hello there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond, and today is Wednesday, September the 7th, 2016, and a very sobering day in hockey, as 5 years ago, the famous Lokomotiv Yaroslavl air disaster happened. So I'll be giving you a lot of facts and giving you the hockey players and all that. So this is the basic YouTube video, like, for everyone around. There will be a specialty one for the New York Rangers people, of course, part of Blue Shirt Underground Radio, right? Right. Anyway, so the accident happened at 4:05 p.m. Moscow time, Wednesday, September 7, 2011. I believe that was like 7 in the morning, our time, on the East Coast. But anyway, Yak Service. I didn't know Yak Service. That was the flight company? Well, anyway, Flight 9633 carried the players from Lokomotiv Yaroslavl, crashed near the city of Yaroslavl, Russia. The aircraft ran off the runway before lifting off, struck a tower mast, caught fire, and crashed 2 kilometers from the airport at the bank of the Volga River. 45 people were on board, 43 had died. The 2 people who didn't die right away was Alexander Galimov, one of the players, but he died 5 days later in hospital, and then the avionics flight engineer Alex Sizov, S-I-Z-O-V, survived. But anyway, Lokomotiv was headed to Minsk to start the 2011-12 KHL season. All players from the main roster and 4 from their youth team were on board the aircraft. Lokomotiv had to cancel their participation in the 2011-12 KHL season. And the club actually participated in the minor league system, the Russian Major League. So anyway, the KHL decided to suspend operations for 5 days while people grieved. Investigation focused on pilot error and technical failures. And basically, testing of the simulation said that pilot error was the cause of as a braking force was found to have been applied by the chief pilot during takeoff. Anyway, it says the immediate cause of the plane crash was the plane crew's erroneous actions, namely the pilot stepping on the brake pedals before raising the nose wheel because of the wrong position of the feet on the brake platforms during takeoff. And they said that the pilots had used falsified documents to fly the aircraft and didn't have the training for the Yak-42. In addition, the co-pilot had got treatment for a nerve disease and was forbidden to fly. And they said he did not feel his foot on the brake, leading to the crash. So anyway, weather conditions were good from Tunisia Airport. So anyway, it accelerated to 140 miles per hour but failed to lift off from the runway. The plane ran past the end of the runway for 400 meters, and it was before it lifted off the ground, but it hit the tower mast and crashed near the Volga River. So basically it was terrible. So the plane was bursting into flames after hitting the mast. The airplane's direction changed after hitting that mast, going to the left-hand side. So anyway, it was huge. At the time of the crash, Lokomotiv was one of the top hockey teams in Russia, established in 1959. They won the Russian Open Championship in 97, 2K2 in 2003, finalists in 2008, 2009, and made it to the third round of the playoffs for 4 straight seasons. Lokomotiv lost in the conference finals to HC MVD and also lost the Western Conference Finals to the KHL that prior season to Atlanta. So anyway, several players were about to make their debut with the team, including Ruslan Slay, Pavel Demitra, and Carlos Skrakton's former NHLers. Also set to make their coaching debuts were a couple of former NHLers, Igor Korolev and Bradley McKinnon. So anyway, President Dmitry Medvedev of Russia, who was actually on his way to Yaroslav because of they were having the Global Policy Forum, sent his condolences to the families killed and of course visited the crash site. Rene Thazel, who's president of the IIHF, the International Hockey Federation, said it's the darkest day in the history of our sport. And chief executive from Man U soccer team, David Gill, wrote to the Russian side for support and sympathy because, of course, Manchester United was hit with a similar disaster. That was in 1958, the Munich air disaster. Yaroslavl, for that whole entire weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, had 3 days of mourning. So anyway, upon hearing the news of the accident, KHL officials stopped the game in progress between Salavat Yuvat and Atlant Moscow Oblast. The game was suspended, and the KHL president addressed the game saying that there was a tragedy. So anyway, the two teams went to a nearby church. So the KHL suspended the season, but September 12th they started it all up. Anyway, on the Saturday, September 10th, there were memorial services for the players held in each country, in the countries where the players came from. The biggest service was, of course, the home arena of Lokomotiv Yaroslav, because a lot of them were Russian. Players were Russian. And then the mourners were there with Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. So anyway, 100,000 people were in the crowd for the state funeral. All that. In Sweden, 10,000 relatives and fans of HV71 attended the home arena to mourn Stefan Leave, who died in the crash. Stefan Leave was a star goalie for HV71. Of course, when Alex Galinov died after 5 days in hospital, there would be another memorial strictly for him the next day. Dallas honored their former teammate Carlos Crackton's with a decal with his number 37 on the helmets of their players. It was a Vasicek's former team, the Hurricanes, wore a commemorative patch on their jerseys during the season. Detroit wore a patch on their 2011 uniforms with the initials of Rusin Soleil. And the patch also honored Brad McCrimmon, who was a star defenseman for that team. And also Stefan Leave, because he was drafted by Detroit and actually played in the minor leagues. Anaheim embroidered Soleil's number 24 on their helmets for the season. New Jersey actually wore a commemorative patch on their jerseys honoring former Devils Karol Vakunik and Alex Fesyunov. St. Louis had a memorial ceremony for Pavel Dmitry and Igor Korolev before a hockey game against the Blackhawks in November. The Blues wore a special 38 patch on their helmets. So anyway, the Slovak Ice Hockey Federation commemorated Pavel Dimitra by announcing that no national team player on any team would wear number 38 in honor of Pavel Dimitra's death, who had actually retired from the national team on home ice at the World Championship Slovakia actually hosted for the first time. And of course, Pavel Dimitra, if you don't know, was the player who nearly tied the game for Slovakia against Canada in the 2010 Olympic semifinals. So anyway, furthermore, it was announced that Team Slovakia would have a minor number 38 sewn into their home jerseys. That Pavel Dimitra has his name on an ice hockey stadium in Trencien. Germany decided to retire the number 20 jersey of Robert Dietrich for Germany. And in a game in October 2011 between the Pens and Caps, they dedicated it to Lokomotiv Yaroslav. The teams wore commemorative patches. All jerseys were autographed by the players and auctioned to raise funds for families who died. Latvia decided to retire the number 7 jersey of Carlos Crackton's in March of 2012. And Dallas had a pregame ceremony with his family and announced a trust fund for the children. The Czechs actually decided to retire ice hockey numbers. Number 4 for Karol Vakunik, number 15 of Jan Marek, and 63 of Josef Vasicek. Of course, we had that big investigation. The technical commission had a findings on September 12th. It said the engines continued working until the crash. The weather was ruled out as a cause of the crash. The crew carried out a check of all flight controls, including the elevator. Everything was fine. Takeoff weight was less than maximum. The plane had 14 tons of fuel on board, and everything was fine. But unfortunately, the pilots were kind of to blame. So anyway. It's just terrible. So anyway, the list of the passengers. 43 out of 45 died. There were some big hockey players who died. A lot of them were Russian unknowns. In the North Americans didn't know who they were, of course. But big names: Pavel Dimitrov, Robert Dietrich, Alex Galimov, Nikita Kupian, Stefan Lev, Jan Marek, Karol Rakunik, Ruslan Soleil, Maxim Shuliov, Carlos Stakins, Ivan Tachenko, Josef Vaschak, and Artem Yarchuk, among others. So basically they had some big names. Like they had a Lady Bing trophy winner and three-time All-Star perished, a 2006 Olympic and world champion died, well, from Sweden, that was Stefan Lev, and 2010 world champion who died, a 2005 world champion and 2006 Stanley Cup champion guy who died, fast check, and a player who had dual citizenship. What was funny is that Yuri Yurachev was injured and suspended and wasn't supposed to play in the game, but he wanted to support the team. They actually left behind a forward, Maxim Siyosaikin, who was 20 years old. A lot of team staff died. Alex Karpetsov was assistant coach. Igor Korlev was assistant coach. Brad McKibben was a head coach. So that was just sad. All that. The goalie coach, Yura Faltonen, was not on the plane as he wanted to work with the junior team. A lot of the flight crew, and of course, died. A lot of accidents involving sports teams and all that. It was just sad to see such great players just die. All that. It had shook me to the core when I found out about this tragedy, because I remember that I was biking home from work when Sellers was still around, and you know, all that, because I was biking ready to make my next podcast, and of course I had to do the podcast on the Lokomotiv thing. I think I still have that one. I hope to God I have that one. I'll probably post it up to do something with that along with this video too. So anyway, a sad, tragic day in hockey for all, and it's been 5 years, and we will never forget Lokomotiv at all.